dance is a universal art. I mean, it goes all the way back to prehistoric times in cave paintings. I mean, it has always been a way that cultures have expressed themselves, and it's one of the few ways that you can communicate if you don't know someone's language. My name is Shauna Steele. I am the Corbett Endowed Chair of the Ballet and Contemporary Dance Department at the University of Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music. My higher education began at Indiana University. I worked through the African American and African Arts Department and the African American Arts Institute to create an individualized major. And I had an advisor who was an amazing woman called Iris Rosa, and her focus was on Afro-Cuban, black dance styles, jazz, modern, and Horton technique. And that was sort of my jumping off point in my undergrad. Throughout my undergrad, I did some dancing outside of the university and quite a bit within so that I could really sort of find my path and what really interested me in dance. And that was how I also discovered that choreography was my thing, that was a thing that just made my soul sing. And then I went out and danced professionally, and then decided to go back to grad school because I wanted to be able to find a way to pass on that spark, that thing that gave me life. And I did my MFA at the University of Michigan. Why dance? The thing that made dance the thing that I wanted to do, to be honest, was that it was the only time that I felt that all of the outside sort of extraneous things that are always sort of pressing in on you didn't matter. I felt free, I felt like I was an individual, and I felt honestly like dance is the best therapy in the world. So if you're having a bad day, you step into the studio, you step on stage, you embody something else or an idea or a person or a character, and you sort of work through it, and then you sort of step out feeling release. Not that doesn't mean that it can't be stressful in its own right, but having that ability to just sort of stay me but become something else at the same time, it also really let me discover who I was. If there's one thing that I feel that I had tried sooner or practiced more, I think that would be the things that happen outside of learning the technique. The somatics, the conditioning, the cross-training, and really sort of diving into that. Because when I was younger and a student, I thought that those were extraneous, that took away from what I was trying to learn. And as we get older and we start exploring more, we realize that, or at least I realized that those were the things that actually could have gotten me to my goal faster. Yoga or fascia release or Feldenkrais method or Franklin method or Alexander technique or even doing a little bit of Pilates or kettlebells. All of those things are the things that help balance your body out and help with the repetitive action that we put in multiple joints when we're dancers. And I think if I had figured that out sooner, I would have become a more fulfilled dancer a lot sooner. So one of the things that's important for dancers in general, but especially for young dancers, is to not limit yourself to one genre and one style. And that's primarily not to make you more hireable, but to make you a better mover. The more we experience, the more it gives more depth and texture to how we move. So for example, in our Western genres, we spend a lot of focus on like the sort of major ways that our body moves, right? So major muscle groups, major joints. But for example, if you look at classical Indian dance, or if you look at hula, there's actually a lot of focus on like the minor joints and how they move to make sort of qualitative actions happen. And without stealing those, or borrowing them inappropriately, we can learn a different way to layer more texture into how we are as movers, which makes you more fulfilled as a dancer. And then the sidebar benefit is it makes you much more hireable. We have to not forget to play. The one thing that is sort of a negative of our structured education system is that we start out as creative beings, and then because there's this structure that we have to learn to move forward, we sometimes think that we have to get rid of that in order to keep going. Because the one thing that I have found when I especially work with younger students is you can say, all right guys, we're gonna do an improv and you're on the moon. And the first thing that they'll do is go, oh, there's no air on the moon. And they'll try to walk up the walls. So to them, there's boundless possibilities, and the rules don't exist besides the important one you gave them, which was to say, play in the space. Whereas sometimes when I work with professionals and I'll say, all right, we're gonna do an improv and you're gonna be on the moon, I'll get questions like, well, how much gravity is there on the moon? Or what's the process of me moving from point A to point B? So we start sort of pulling that fear back in of not being able to do it perfectly, and then we lose the magic. So there are many tips that I could give you for auditioning. The first one is to really look at the programs themselves. There are BA programs out there, BFA programs, academy-focused programs, trainee programs, conservatory programs, liberal arts programs, and not to overwhelm you, but they all offer something different. And it depends on what you need as part of your sort of development or college career. So finding the program that fits you best is both fluke and intent. The best way as a high school student is to, as much as money allows, go to different summer programs that are out there. Go to programs that are hosted by companies, by programs that are hosted by academies, by programs that are actually hosted by what we call an independent resource like Jacob's Pillow or ADF, American Dance Festival, or go to some of the summer programs that are hosted by some of the colleges. Now, the part about this that's actually the important part is not actually going to those sites. It's meeting different dancers from different high schools and different colleges that are also at those sites. Because then you're gonna hear in a natural setting some of the things that they like about places that they've been, or the people that they've met, or what the personality or intent of a program is. And that's how you're really gonna find the texture and the color that exists outside of the sort of black and white print of what the programs or majors are actually about. Top tips that I would give seniors going into the audition process. The first one is both obvious and not obvious, and it's don't try to second guess and figure out what they're after and try to sort of force yourself into that mold, because then they can't sort of read who you are and what your personality is. Really sort of be who you are as a mover, and then let them see the possibilities of what that means. And don't edit your video. When they're asking to see a full variation or to see you doing a sequence in class, they want to see the highs and lows, the good and bad that happens as you move through that. They don't want to see that it's been constantly edited. A program is more likely to admit you based on how you adapted to the situation than in getting perfect cuts of like 7 different times that you attempted to do the combination. So how do you not feel discouraged or get over the fear of rejection? Well, you don't really get over the fear of rejection. I think regardless of whether or not you're in the arts or you're outside of the arts, cold auditions are really just there to sort of get you out into that world. Very rarely do the majority of your gigs or opportunities come from just those cold auditions. So as far as the fear goes, what I would say is don't treat them as, if I don't get this, my world will end. and really sort of look at it as, I'm just going to treat it like a master class. It's just another class that I get to take, and I'm going to learn something new. And that something new might give me a different way that I look at a tandu, or it might give me another way that I look at a contraction, or it might help me figure out that dreaded word balance, right? If I hear it one more time from someone else. So fear is not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to be able to focus it in a specific direction. There's a story about someone going on a car trip and deciding that fear is allowed to go on the car trip, but it's not allowed to touch the radio. It's not allowed to do anything else. It's allowed to be on the trip because it does have value, but it's not allowed to make any of the decisions.